So typically speaking, when you hear this story about the Sadducees coming to kind of trap Jesus, right? Usually the way I've heard this story kind of told is like, you're not going to know what it's like when you're dead. You don't get to predict or control. Heaven's a whole different thing, so kind of give up on it. Stop trying to figure this stuff out. I want to offer that I think something else very different is going on in this text. And maybe it's just because I've been raised out of a feminist and kind of critique of oppression and perspective, but I just want to say that I think the Sadducees are doing something a little different here. Now, the thing they're referencing is called levirate marriage. Many of you have heard this before, so we talked about this before. So the basic concept is actually to protect widows from poverty, right? Because we're in a patriarchal society. Women can't own property, they can't inherit, and so you have to have a male son who's then going to be the one who takes care of you in your old age. And not that long ago in this society, we had similar structures, right? In the 70s, most of you couldn't open a bank account without a man signing off for you. This is not actually all that ancient of history, right? Or, yes. So, levirate marriage is actually a system designed to protect somebody who is vulnerable within a system of oppression, right? The whole concept was to support the woman from not going into poverty. But when the Sadducees tell this story, who are they concerned about? Yes, the man. Which man is this woman going to belong to? They're not talking about poverty, they're talking about property. And so I do not believe that Jesus is in any way telling us not to get married. Because the concept of marriage at that time is very different than the concept of marriage today. This is not a call to chastity and celibacy and separation from love and relationship. It's about not entering into contractual relationships of property with other people. But it's convenient that America doesn't tell the story that way, isn't it? We can see how our whole history has been stacked up in reading the Bible in certain ways to justify certain types of oppression and not actually reading what's really there. But Jesus is telling us that we need a better bullshit detector. That is the message of this story. He's looking at the Sadducees and he's saying, you guys don't even care about this. But what you do care about is maintaining control. And I'm going to cut that out from under you. He's telling, I believe Luke is telling us this story because Luke believes that we need a better bullshit detector as Christian people. And Lord, do we need it now, right? Christian nationalists don't even know what Christianity is. Wes came to me this morning and said, you know what? One of these Christian nationalists, she said, how many AR-15s do you think Jesus had? Not enough to prevent the government from killing him. And I'm just like, wow, you really missed the point about the cross. If you think that the problem was that he wasn't armed well enough to stop it, right? But the thing is, they don't really care about Jesus. They care about power. We need to not get distracted, folks. We need a better bullshit detector. And the reason that I'm bringing this up now is we have been hoodwinked about this concept of salvation. And we've been hoodwinked about this concept of resurrection. Somebody sold us a bill of goods that this whole thing is about the afterlife of pie in the sky when you die by and by. And who does that benefit? The people in power. Because you'll get yours when you're dead. So you might as well be dead. Does that sound anything like the Jesus you know? Does that sound anything like abundant life? Does that sound anything like freedom and hope and joy and peace and love and understanding and welcome? We have been sold a bunch of lies in this faith. One of the reasons I wanted to put that video up earlier is I wanted us to put the concept of salvation within the realm of self-actualization, within the realm of freedom and liberation, within the realm of being fully alive. I consistently will preach you a message that my definition of salvation is the moment that you know unequivocally that you are fundamentally, profoundly, and undeniably beloved of God. You are saved in that moment because there is nothing that can impinge on your worthiness, nothing that can cut you down, nothing that can exile you from the love of God. In that moment, you are saved. And then 10 minutes later, what happens? Some bullshit pops up and distracts us. We need better bullshit detectors, people. We need to be able to see this stuff coming and reject it out of hand. This is why we have to call on the ancestors. Because there are people in our lives who have really good bullshit detectors. People who are not going to get hoodwinked by some lie and some trick, some fallacy that was going to convince them, some argument, somebody was going to come and tell them like the Sadducees did, tell them a story and get them to buy in. They step out. You know, I'm reading these texts by Audre Lorde and by Bell Hooks, and they are teaching me things about how to keep the main thing. They're helping me re-articulate and re-understand this concept of union with God, this concept of oneness as a freedom from freedom from oppression, an experience of full liberation. All of those things that we believed inside of ourselves that actually justify our own oppression or allow us to justify the oppression of others. Just look at the arc of feminist movement and thought and how it's changed over time as it is willing to analyze and address issues of oppression. And the ways that white women stood on the backs of black women in order to get ahead in women's movement. We talk about when women got the vote. When did women get the vote? 1965. Because black women couldn't vote in 1920, or 30, or 40, or 50, or 60. Right? We have to remember that how we tell the story matters, and who's in matters. And when we're the Sadducees telling the story about levirate marriage, about the man, we're missing the point. We need a better bullshit detector. This is what our man Jesus was all about. He said, who's the most vulnerable person in the room? I'm going to center that person. This whole garbage that he needed a gun to protect himself obviously betrays their ignorance about the reality of the faith. Because the faith centers the most vulnerable person in the room and makes sure that they know that they are loved by God. And anybody who preaches an alternative gospel, I'm not going to say that I know the one and only truth, but I'm going to tell you I will call bullshit. I am very comfortable doing that. Now, this last part of the text, right, where Jesus says, even Moses witnessed to the resurrection in the story of the bush, because he called on God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Now, if you need proof that scripture can be read as an allegory, here's Jesus literally doing it in this moment. What does it mean for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to be fully alive? What does it mean for them to be living prophets of the living God? One of the great things about our man Jesus is he's constantly invoking the people of Abraham instead of the people of Moses. Why is that important? Because there's a bunch of descendants of Abraham that didn't get the law and don't identify as Hebrews and aren't the in crowd. They aren't welcome, right? They're the outsiders, but Abraham has descendants like the stars. And some of them are the Jewish people, and a bunch of them aren't. But this is the God of all people. Our bullshit detector is about making sure that our faith isn't about justifying us. It's about creating a greater us. right? Part of the reason I wanted to show you that video is to say, if our faith, our diversity of faith is pulling us apart, then we're not living into our actual faith that should be drawing us together. Instead, we're playing this game like the Sadducees to see who gets to be on top, who gets to win and who gets to lose. Our ancestors live in us when they call us into greater freedom and greater relationship. Just remember that person who always made sure there was a space at the table. That person who always made sure that your favorite food was there, even if it was inconvenient. That person that bought that candy that no one else but you ate, but it was always there when you showed up. We have this incredible power within us. When we are saved, when we believe that we are beloved children of God, when we believe that nothing can threaten that, and we go and live in the world that way, we can change the world. When we have that better bullshit detector and we actually show up and we don't let all of this other nonsense distract us and divide us. I've been reading this book by Adrienne Marie Brown called Holding Change. And one of the arguments she makes in it is she says, the world operates in fractals. What that means is the little things that you do, the little ways that you live, the little connections and relationships that you make, those are the foundation for these greater societal changes. That actually every little thing you do really matters in building a culture that extends out on you. And you know this is true because those little kindnesses that people have done for you, you remember years and years and years later. Those little ways that people made you feel welcome have shaped and formed you. And that's a power of it. When we animate those ancestors, when we remember them, we live out this witness that we received from them. So my question to you, that I want you to sit with, if we're people of the resurrection, if that's who we are, we're people that are reborn, born again, born anew. And I like to think of it as being born or carried by God again, instead of trying to do it on our own. What is the resurrection that's happening in your life that is actually reorganizing your world?